I'm hoping you come up with the right conclusion, because if this city is as business friendly as it contends, then I think you need to take note of it.
Mr. West, any comments on that?
Our Public Works Director, Mike Conway, will handle this.
Mayor, members of the City Council, we do provide notification as required under state law, which is based upon the latest assessor's tax rolls, and that's how we've done this bid and every other bid. This is not the first year of this bid as well, and we've had no other complaints of a similar nature, so we believe our outreach has been sufficient.
Okay. Any other comments from council members? We have a motion and a second. Members on hearing item number 4, cast your votes.
Motion carries, 9 votes yes.
All right, thank you. We're going to go item number 23, a little out of order. Clerk will read.
Item 23 is communication from the Office of Councilmember D. Andrews, 6th District Vice Chair of the Personnel and Civil Service Committee, for a recommendation to concur in the recommendation of the committee to receive it and confirm an appointment to the Charter Commission.
Mr. Andrews, item 23.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. It is a recommendation to the City Council for the personnel and the Civil Service Committee that Harry Saltwater, excuse me. We're working on it. Okay, Salt Graver. All right, fine. The resident of the 9th District has been appointed to the Water Commission, and I know that Mr. Harris is very active in our community. He has served on several boards, the Long Beach Grand Prix and to the Virginia League of Long Beach, and I believe he's just turned out in Parks and Recreation Commission. And this is a great choice, for the Water Commission. And I really appreciate you and enjoy that you're going to be a part of this great, commission that you put me on. So if you'd like to come down and say a few words, we'd really appreciate it. If not, you can just accept it and enjoy it.
We're not there yet. We need a motion. You want to make the motion?
Yes, motion.
Second. Moved and seconded. I would only add, Harry's done a great job on Parks and Rec, and I had a conversation with him before I appointed him, and I think the recent audit by Laura Dowd, our city auditor, relative to some of the issues at Water, and I'm not making any conclusions from that. I'm just saying there are some issues that we need to go through, and I do think that some additional scrutiny on Water is necessary. Mr. Saltgaber has agreed with that, so I think he will be a force over there to really look carefully at what management's doing and whether or not it's consistent with city policy. And the bottom line is that it's all consumer money, one way or the other. It's what I've been saying about enterprise funds. So I just wanted that clear. I know we will hear more about the audit. I think there are some concerns there. I'm not drawing any conclusions, but I know that Mr. Salzgaber will be actively involved in that. Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think Harry is an excellent choice. I hate to lose him in Parks and Recs. He's a great advocate for the community. It's been a great advocate for the 9th District, and I think he's an excellent choice, and he'll do a wonderful job.
Unfortunately, he really could not continue to serve on the park, so he was turned down. He actually extended his tenure a little bit beyond reason. Mr. Johnson.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I just want to congratulate Mr. Salzgaber in advance that you'll be a great water commissioner. I've personally seen what he's done in Parks and Rec and advancing the cause of sustainability, looking at how we can control maintenance costs and have a long-term approach for our parks. And I think in particular, given his interest in looking at reducing watering costs at some of our parks, I think that's going to be a great experience to go to the water department, since you're already very familiar with that. So I just want to congratulate you, and I feel very assured that we'll have someone with Mr. Salzgaber's expertise over at water.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everybody's talking about where he's going, but I think most importantly, thus far, is where he's been. He did a great job in Parks and Rec Commission. He was a great voice there for kids. He was a voice of reason there, and he was always one that you could reach out to and communicate with. So thank you for your service there, and I know you're going to do a great job on water.
I just add that, it's very difficult to get people, particularly on some of the boards that are more time-consuming, like water, to find, really capable, talented, interested people who want to do it. So I always thank people for serving. It often goes unheralded, but it's great service. We need people like this, and I want to thank not only Harry, but everyone who stepped up and asked to serve. So Harry, thank you. I think you'll do a great job, and I want to thank you for your willingness to serve. We have a motion and a second. Members, cast your votes. Harry, did you want to say something? I'm sorry. He asked you down here, but I didn't see you move, so. We'll take it with a pinch of salt.
Take it with a pinch of salt, please. I just wanted to say thank you very much for your confidence. I have always believed in community service, and I've always been very fortunate in working with incredible people in the Parks and Rec Department. As you know, while I was chair of that commission, we managed to be named the best Parks and Rec Department in the country. And I fully expect that to continue there. There are great people there. I do believe that the water department in Long Beach is well known as being one of the best around. I look forward to trying to make it even better. And I just appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Appreciate it. All right, members, cast your votes on Mr. Salzgaber.
Motion carries 9 votes yes.
Thank you. Congratulations, Harry. Appreciate your service again. Item 14, clerk will read.
Item 14 is communication from the Office of Councilmember Susie Lowenthal and Councilmember Al Austin with the recommendation to request the inclusion of information in the Long Beach City Officials and Employees Handbook related to violations of the Brown Act involving disclosure of details discussed in closed session, and to request the city attorney to outline possible punishment for unethical behavior leading to the public disclosure of details discussed in closed session.
Councilmember Lowenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to just give a brief background on why I was bringing this item forward at this time. A couple of weeks ago when we had a discussion about another item, Mr. Shannon had indicated that some Brown Act violations are, and I don't recall, Mr. Shannon, you eloquently put it, it's a violation without a penalty? Remedy.
A wrong without an effective remedy.
A wrong without an effective remedy. And so I think that's troubling. We do hold ourselves as elected officials very much in line with how the Brown Act guides us. It is a code of conduct, and I think if there are no consequences for any violations, then perhaps we shouldn't rely on them as much or hold ourselves out as though we do. And so I want to emphasize the need for us, as well as appointees, to be able to speak freely in closed session without fear of those thoughts being shared with the press or lobbyists or the public in general. Many times the consequences are not spelled out, and therefore violating them is not really discouraged. There are no consequences, and there should be. And I'd like just to request for information about what other cities are able to do. And I think Mr. Shannon had indicated a couple of weeks ago, the legislature may have brought forward the Brown Act and other codes of conduct as it relates to us as electeds and as well as our appointees, but at the same time, they left out the part about what the consequences would be, which I think is an opportunity for us in local government to craft a set of consequences or conditions that would be fitting for our city and our municipality. So I'd like to ask Mr. Shannon if he was aware of any municipality that may have taken it to that next step, or if at least in this process you could let us know when you come back.
I'm not aware of any other municipality, but I can certainly check.
Okay. And
Does this come under the 3 strikes law? I guess. Yeah.
the amended version of it.
Just wondering.
So I'd like to ask my colleagues to consider this as an opportunity for us to be able to take the code of conduct that I know we all take seriously and ensure that there is appropriate consequences that would discourage violations of that. I think we trust each other certainly as a body, and we respect this institution. I respect this institution. I know each and every one of you does as well, and in doing so we must be able to be free with one another as we are discussing and deliberating on items, especially of sensitive nature. And when we do, we should be able to realize that the outcome of these discussions is so that we can be better informed and make informed decisions. And so for that, I do believe that we have to be able to be in an environment where consequences would exist should we not adhere to that code of conduct. With that, I'd like to make the motion.
Moved and second. Councilmember Shipsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also ask maybe at some time certain that the city attorney make some kind of presentation to go over the Brown Act. I think that there may not be some clarification I'm particularly concerned about. I still brought up this concern before about, we had a closed session and a sense of the council was taken about whether or not we were going to be the successor agency, and I would have suggested that that should have been a public vote, but it wasn't. And Mr. Shannon, I contacted you last week about something as to whether or not something could be disclosed in a closed session. I was surprised for you to tell me that what took place was not confidential in there and it could be discussed. So my concern is we have things in closed session that are supposedly confidential. I mean, that's the purpose of getting them into closed session, unless you have a recorded vote out. So I would be grateful if at some point after you get back about how we can behead people punish them for talking out of closed session. If we could just go over generally the rules and regs about what qualifies to go into closed session and why it has to be kept confidential.
Well, first of all, beheading is probably too severe a remedy, although I'm not
That
quite certain
would be
about
the
that.
second offense.
That's who it is.
But I'm glad you brought up one point, and that is, many times you take votes, that are preliminary votes on, for example, just use an example, real estate negotiations. You vote until you tell your negotiator to start negotiating in such and such a manner. Not the way you intend to end up, perhaps, but you give instructions to your negotiator. You can see that that particular vote is absolutely critical that it not be made public and that the other side not know it. There are a number of other votes that you take in closed session that actually are subject to public disclosure. And I don't want to get into a lot of detail with regard to Schroeder Hall. I'll just say that the vote you took with regard to Schroeder Hall and the motion that was made that resulted in the vote that you took for Schroeder Hall was subject to public disclosure. What was not subject to public disclosure was the discussion surrounding, that is the deliberative process that caused each of you to enter into a particular vote, aye or nay. That is never discoverable. So there is a distinction as to what went on in the Schroeder Hall closed session between what can be said and what cannot be said. It certainly is not true and will never be true that everything that's said in a closed session is subject to be disclosed.
On that note, I really am sincere about this. If at some point you could maybe outline, or we could have some kind of session, and just go over the ramifications of the Brown Act. Because as you know, the legislature the governor attempted to suspend the Brown Act for 3 years this year as part of some budget deliberations. He didn't get his way, but that was out there for quite a bit. I don't know. I think they thought that there would be some. I think, Mr. Mayor, there had been some ramifications of some discussions that had taken place legislatively about budget, and people had raised a problem. I know that it's Keene Bagley, so I don't know why that was even out there. But anyhow, I would appreciate that. I think that might be instructive, and it may be helpful. I want to put the best motives on everyone, quite honestly, that sometimes I don't think people really do understand the ramifications of the Brown Act or closed session. So I think hopefully we can give people that benefit of the doubt.
I think you would do a great job of doing that. I'd love to see that. Just letting you know. Let's throw it down.
Yeah, I just want to be careful here because I think one man's open meeting is another man's.
Mr. O'Donnell.
One man's open meeting is another man's misdemeanor. And I don't know what the test is here, Mr. Shannon,
The simplest test? Pick up the phone and ask your city attorney.
That's what I did recently. So, thank you.
Because in many cases I get to do my primary job, which is to be the scapegoat of last resort.
All right. First resort. Okay. No, I think he spelled it out. I think the questions here have been good tonight. The conversation has been healthy. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to thank Councilmember Lowenthal for bringing this back, or this discussion to the council. I think it's healthy, it's appropriate in light of legal opinions given over the last couple of weeks, and quite honestly, I'm still a little confused on closed session, what's allowable to be disclosed in closed session or from closed session. I actually went and did my own independent research on the matter from the Attorney General's handbook. and learned quite a bit about confidential information. It means that a communication made in closed session that is specifically related to the basis for the legislative body to meet lawfully in closed session. So if you disclose a matter that is not specifically related to the agenda, I don't know that that is a violation of the Brown Act, number one. Number two, Mr. City Attorney, you opined that this was a violation without any real remedy. Well, according to the handbook, in the Attorney General's handbook, if the prohibition is violated, it may be enforced by relying upon current legal available remedies, including the following: injunctive relief to prevent the disclosure of confidential information, disciplinary action against an employee who has willfully disclosed confidential information in violation of this prohibition. Such disciplinary action must be first preceded by training or notice of prohibition. And number three, referral of a member of a legislative body who has willfully disclosed confidential information to the grand jury. I also looked at the city of Los Alamitos. I believe the city council took action against one of their members in January of 2012, which included referring the matter to the district attorney or possibly other agencies to look at for discipline. I say all that to say that I'm still very unclear, and Councilmember Lowenthal, if you would, I think it's important just to note that I've been on the city council just about 90 days now, and the extent of my training regarding Brown Act has been about a 6-minute conversation with our city attorney, and I think it would behoove us all as a city to really take a strong look at this law. If we're going to throw stones and allege that individuals are violating the Brown Act, we need to understand what the Brown Act truly is, and maybe it would help us all as city council members as well as our commissions to undergo some real training on the issue.
Well, I think in all fairness, Mr. Austin, you should indicate that in that, I think it was more of a 20-minute conversation, I handed you a booklet, and that booklet referred with some specificity to the Brown Act. I hope you read it. Did you read it?
I did.
Okay, so it was more than a 6-minute oral conversation. Be happy to give you a full exposition on the Brown Act. I will say, however, that when I said that with regard to legislative members, leaking of information is a wrong without an effective remedy. If you look at the section you referred to, 54963 of the Government Code, it does indicate that you can take disciplinary action against an employee, but you cannot take disciplinary action against a member of a legislative body. The only action you can take with regard to a member of a legislative body is to get injunctive relief, and I challenge you to see to tell me how that is an effective remedy, or to refer this person to a grand jury. I would suggest that that is not an effective remedy. First of all, they don't even say whether it's a criminal or a civil grand jury. But beyond that, it says nothing with regard to what the grand jury can do once you refer it to the grand jury. So this is a very cosmetic section, so far as I'm concerned. With regard to employees, there always is an effective remedy to deal with the leaking of information. They can be terminated. The problem lies strictly with regard to elected members. You're very limited in what you can do. The law is very unclear, and yes, you can censure an employee, but beyond that, there's very little you can do.
Thank you. And I just would disagree with you that according to section 963, I'm sorry, there are at least 2 remedies afforded to the legislative body for penalties for violating the Brown Act. Now, whether or not those penalties rise to the level of satisfaction in terms of to your satisfaction, Mr. City Attorney, I don't think that matters, but it does show that there actually is a recourse for violation of the Brown Act.
Well, I would just like to conclude this by indicating that I've been city attorney for 14 years, and before that I was assistant city attorney for 13 years. I'm not aware of any member of any legislative body in the state of California who's leaked information which takes place